everyone. I'm so excited to be here with today's guest, Sara Perelli-Minetti. Welcome to How to Handle Anything.
I'm so excited to chat with you, Mary. This is awesome. Thanks for having me.
Sara and I just spent, I don't know, 20 minutes just talking about some of the things that we are going to talk about today. But I'm already like, this could be a day long episode with all the wisdom and stories that I know we could talk through. But I want Sara to tell us a little bit about herself so that we can get a sense of who you are and what you're going to talk about here today. Sara, if we were to meet in an elevator going from like the ground floor to the penthouse, how might you introduce yourself to me?
Oh man. I mean, if I had my child with me and he was trying to push all the buttons, I would say, I'm so sorry. I'm Sarah. This is Luca. And no, professionally speaking. So I am a compensation consultant, which means I help people negotiate stronger job offers and severance packages. And
That's so
it's,
cool.
yeah, and it's funny because, like, really what it is helping people own their self worth and learning how to self advocate.
So important. I wish this existed or had I known you in your current role many times over throughout my career. And I imagine many other people could benefit from it as well. And how we initially connected was I think I saw a LinkedIn post that you made about layoffs and navigating layoffs. And that's what we're going to talk about: how to handle job loss, layoffs, the anything that can happen when we least suspect it, and often when we least want it. I know you've developed some tools and tips that can help people navigate this, and I just want to get into it. I've been laid off once before. I handled it the way I handled it, but what, like, let's go back and look at me or anyone who, like, day one just got laid off. Like, I come to you and I'm like, what do I do? Like, I'm probably in panic mode, but how do we handle a layoff?
Oh man. Okay. So I'll start by saying I've been laid off 4 times.
Mm,
And twice it was an individual termination where it was essentially like performance, something's not working. And twice it was part of a RIF, which is also known as a reduction in force. And I make that distinction because what happens next and sort of how it plays out can vary a little bit. And also just especially on the emotional side. So I want to call that out. Um, but the thing, oh man. So first of all, like if it's part of a riff, a lot of times you're just shocked.
mm,
Like if you were part of a group layoff, it can just, and we saw this a couple years ago with all those layoffs in big tech. People had heard things were coming, but you kind of never expect it to happen to you. And so when it does, there's this moment of just like, wait, what just happened? And it can be completely head spinning. And the advice I always give people, and I learned this myself, like, so the first time I ever got laid off, the first 24 hours, I was in a total panic and just despondent. I took to my bed. And then I
mm.
reached out to, and I was only 23, I reached out to a mentor who was like, you need to write down a list of all the people you work with. I was like, really? She was like, I want you to go make a spreadsheet where you say, like, here are all the people I've worked with over the past year. Here's how I know them, like at least their job title, and write down their email address. And this was before LinkedIn was like really a thing. But it's funny when I think about, so the reason this advice was so important it's amazing how quickly you step out of a certain work context that you forget people's names, especially when you've had a long career and you have like decades of colleagues you're trying to remember. And yet, the most powerful thing that's going to help you land your next opportunity is all of your existing connections. And now with LinkedIn, there's second and third degree connections. So, the first advice I give people on day one is just write down your colleagues. Just like make a list of them. get some basic contact info. And if you haven't already connected with them on LinkedIn, just do it. Just do it now. Okay, that's one thing. That's the first list you make.
Is that before or after you like cry in your bedroom for several hours?
I
Like
mean, cry first.
cry first, okay.
So I do, it's actually a really important point though, because I think the thing, uh, taking action, having a few small things that help you regain a sense of agency are what stop the tears
Mm,
and stop the spiral, the
mm-hmm.
emotional spiral of like, oh my God, like this happened to me because there's something wrong with me.
Mm,
Like I messed up. It's amazing how quickly we go there. And by the way, I find the people who go there faster are the people who are super high achieving
mm.
and type A and work really hard, and their identity is very tied to their job. I also see that women go there more.
Mm.
So, yeah.
We have a principle, an improv principle, and I write about this in the book called like say yes and, right? It's the foundational principle of improv. And
Yeah.
as much as surface level it seems like agreeing with something, it's actually acknowledging the thing in front of you, right? And then contributing, like
Mm.
affirming and contributing. And so this seems like such a yes and moment of like, and playing the scene you're in, really, because like, okay, you got laid off, that's the scene you're in. Acknowledge your feelings about it, acknowledge it sucks, maybe you're angry, maybe you're upset, and like then make choices, like, because if you try to ignore any of those feelings about it, it could be like trying to push a beach ball under the water where it just keeps popping back up. So it sounds like actually it's an important step to just, hey, acknowledge the situation, the reality of something you can't change, you can't control it. And then from there, you'll be able to take action in a more calm, grounded place. And taking that action is going to give you some like reinforce like those emotions of like strength and encouragement, and kind of get you out of that spiral.
Yeah, I love that framing of this is the moment to play the scene you're in. That's perfect framing. And I want to make a distinction that that initial acknowledgement, that's not your processing time. That's going to come
Mm,
later because it does take time and it's going to unfold and it's going to kind of unravel and you're not quite sure what you're going to feel until you're in it. So it's
mm,
more that like, and we're talking about day one, right? We're not even talking about week one. Day one, yes, acknowledge like this happened, this sucks. And there are three things I can do right now. I can make a list of my contacts and just grab their contact information, make sure we're connected on LinkedIn because I will need them in the future. And then the second thing to do, and this is, you can only do it if your access hasn't already been cut off, download your performance reviews. So I know that sounds, and this is really tactical, but it is amazing. So, like, getting a job, so much of getting a job requires you to be able to tell the story of your past accomplishments with quantifiable results. It is amazing how quickly you forget what you've done.
yeah.
You're like, what was that campaign that I did? Like, I remember trying to
Yeah.
write my resume like a few months later and just being like, I can't even remember, which marketing channels. This is my first job where I was in marketing. Like, I can't even remember which marketing channels we used, let alone like the lift in awareness that we got on it.
Yeah.
Anyway, download your performance reviews or any documents that you've already created, not proprietary information, right? You're not stealing IP, but just like stuff that's going to help you rewrite your resume. Just grab it.
Mm.
And then the third thing that's really tactical is make a list of like the 5 people who are your tribe, your inner circle, who are going to just support you no matter what.
Mm. We call that having like, it's like your ensemble, like the ensemble mindset of have those folks that are going to have your back no matter what, right? Before we get on stage at Second City, it was always, I've got your back, I've got your back. And you're there, like it creates this like feeling of like, you know what, I'm not alone in this, I have support. So I love that. Like gather your ensemble, like those people that are closest to you that always have your back.
Yes. And, oh, go ahead.
No, go for it. I love the yes and moment.
Uh, and with that ensemble in mind, you have a choice. You can reach out to them that day and say, I just want to let you know that this happened. You know,
Mm,
I'm not asking for anything. I just want you to know.
mm,
And you can also, or you don't have to do that, but that list reminds you that you are not alone. And the, I think, antidote to the shame of being laid off is being seen for who you are beyond just that person who is in that job.
yeah.
And your ensemble is going to play that role for you.
Yeah. That's such a great reminder. And it's such a gift of information you give someone to let them know that this is where you're at. I think in some ways, losing a job, there's a lot of grief. Like it is grief, it's a loss.
Yeah.
And grief is a funny thing, right? It shows up in different ways. And one of the things that's so common amongst grief, right, is sometimes we don't always know what to ask for when people are like, well, how can I
Yeah.
help? So just by letting someone know, hey, here's where I'm at, like that allows your ensemble to show up for in ways for you that you might not be ready for, but you might need to be ready for it, or like it might just come at the right time. And I think that's such an important thing that you bring up. You don't have to ask for anything. You can just share and let that sit and be known and appreciated for the person you are beyond the job.
That's right. We are whole people. And you know, that'll get you through day 1. And then, you know, have the really comforting dinner, watch the bad TV, go to bed.
Eat that pint of gelato. The performance review thing, just because I've worked at organizations that don't have a formal performance review process, and
Mm.
there's no, I just wondering if you could speak to that. What if, for the folks that out there that do get fired or laid off from a job where they didn't have formal performance reviews, what could be something else they could do to kind of remind themselves of what they've done and what they've accomplished during that time?
I recommend time boxing a session for yourself where you literally spend 10 to 15 minutes and you just brainstorm like,
Mm,
okay, what am I most proud of the past 6 months? You're not actually writing the resume bullets. You're not actually trying to craft it perfectly, but you're just trying to jog your own memory and doing it
mm,
while you still have access to the data on your company laptop where you can quickly go look up, like, wait, what did that thing do? Like, what did I achieve? How much money did we save? It just makes it a lot easier.
yeah.
That might be a 24-hour later thing if you still have, again, access. But, and again, like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
This does
It'll
not
still
have
be
to be
fresh
a,
in your memory too, right? So even if you don't have access, you can remember those things. And to your point around mindset being so important, it puts you in a mindset of like the things you did and accomplished versus beating yourself up. Like that might be a huge value of doing that exercise of like all the positive things, all the accolades, all the things you're proud of. So it puts your mind in that place instead of the feeling ick about yourself.
completely. One of the prompts I use is, what are the stories you want to tell about your time at insert company here?
Mm, I love that.
And here's the other reason why that mindset is actually really important, because and why it's good to like start a little bit, and this can help start the processing. If you show up to an interview and you are still angry at your previous employer, resentful,
Mm,
like maybe a little like salty about it, it's going to come through, and it never comes across well, even if it's
mm,
completely justified. But you want to
yeah.
make sure that you have been able to make that mental shift and pivot so that you don't bring that energy. And I say this because this is something I have totally gotten wrong before.
I imagine many of us have. It also sounds a lot like dating advice. Like after a breakup, you gotta process it a little bit before you go, badmouth your ex on your next first date.
The parallels between jobs and dating and marriage are, there's so many. Like we were talking about severance, like severance is a prenup. That is
Yep.
exactly what it is if you talk about it before you take the offer. But anyway, we can talk about that later. But yes.
So that gets us like right after it happens.
Yeah.
Obviously, the weeks and months that follow might bring some other curveballs, and here now you're navigating. You don't have a script, right? You're figuring this out as you go. You have this blank page, this empty stage, and you're just writing the script in real time. How do people handle that going from, for many people, working 40 plus, depending on
Yeah.
where in the world you are, 40 plus hours a week to, I don't know where I'm going Monday. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know how I'm going to spend my time. I don't know what's next. All of these kind of unknowns in those weeks and months that follow. What then?
Having been through this a few times myself, what I've found to be most helpful is to recreate that structure for yourself
Mm.
and to do it in a really balanced way. Um, so, so I'm going to talk about like how do you structure your day, and then like what is actually the first thing that you should do for the job search portion. So, for structuring your day, there are a few things that we want to make sure that we make time for. So, one is just your health. Congratulations, you can now work out every day. Like,
Go to the
and
gym.
well, and so I want to call this out though, because I think a lot of times the impulse that people have is, oh my God, I have to job search 8 hours a day. And I'm here to tell you it's just not possible. You will, that will be quantity. It will not be quality. Like, just don't do it. Resist that impulse. So step one is like, how do you actually take care of yourself as a human? Let's make sure you're building in that exercise time. And congratulations, you also now have more time to cook. So like, make yourself really good food. So that's bucket one, health. The next bucket is connection. And how do you make sure, because like if you are in a job, you're probably talking to a lot of people all day, every day. Maybe you were in an office. Suddenly that's gone. Okay, if you're single, and 3 times when I was laid off, or two of the times I was laid off, I was single. Like, it can get very isolating and quiet. You have to build in time very deliberately to socialize and see other people and stay connected. So I would schedule every single day something. It could be a phone call, or it could be, meeting up with friends after they finished work, or it could be meeting friends who are also laid off for a workout class, but like make sure that connection happens. And then, of course, the third bucket is the actual job search time. And we can dig into a little bit more what that should look like. But I think the biggest takeaway I want people to have is that 4 to 5 hours of focused, high quality job search should be the target. Don't burn yourself out on it, because it will be a long game and it can be
Yeah.
very energy depleting.
Yeah. I mean, I guess that's with anything, right? You do it for long enough, your effectiveness. I'm just thinking about I do the New York Times games, and like spelling bee, you gotta like, if you look at it for too long, you just can't see any new words. But if you leave, go for a walk, have a nice meal, and come back to it, it's like boom, boom, boom. Right away, you see them, right? Our minds need that break. And I love this kind of focus on taking care of yourself, eating well, going to the gym, taking care of your health. The other thing I heard you mention earlier around like, you want to, the mindset matters. Like, what can you do to put yourself in the best mindset for applying for these jobs? And there's another guest I had on, Simona, who shared, this is amazing, this mindset, this technique, where the kind of the approach is, isn't this amazing? And it might be something you've never encountered before, but when you go in with like looking at all the gifts of this thing, whether it's trying something new or some new opportunity or this unexpected blank space, then you're actually approaching it with this like, it's a different attitude, right? Stepping into this, be like, wow, this is so cool. I get to work out every day. I get to maybe spend some extra time cooking, and I get to choose something else to do. Like maybe I get to change my, like, an industry, or I get to, try remote work instead of in person. So I'm curious what kind of, like, the mindset piece, how do you put yourself in the right mindset those couple weeks to be most, like, kind of your best post layoff self?
I have found journaling to be a really powerful tool. And specifically, and you don't have to write this down. You could literally just talk into your phone and do a voice note. But one of the most powerful prompts is, what is the story that I'm telling myself right now about this
Mm.
situation? Get it out, right? Like, we're not going to immediately leap to the positive reframe
Mm.
because, as you and I discussed before, like, if you skip the tears, if you skip the emotional processing, you say it's like a beach ball that's just going to like pop up,
Yep.
right? Okay.
Yep.
So, like, what is the story I'm telling myself about this right now? Okay, get it out. Then say, what is the story that I'm going to tell 5 years from now?
Mm.
And then what is the story that if I were my best friend, or like my best friend was going through this, I would tell them about what's happening right now?
Yeah.
So this is actually connected. I don't know if you're familiar with the work of Ethan Kross.
Yes,
He
Michigan also.
Michigan also, right? So he talks about this technique, to get yourself out of rumination, which can be the dominant state of the early days of job loss. You literally zoom out. And he calls
Mm.
it like perspective taking, and it can happen in a few different ways. Some of it is literally imagining yourself like, I am a tiny speck. Here's the big picture. But the act of time travel via journaling and imagining the future immediately helps shift your perspective
Yeah.
and helps you. And again, we're talking about a mindset shift. The most important mindset shift is to step away from this particular job as defining you and defining your self worth.
Mm.
You, Mary, are whoever, like, you have a certain set of skills and experiences that you carry with you wherever you go. The most recent job you had was merely the place that you were applying these skills and experiences. But your
Yeah.
ability to apply them is not dependent on a given company giving you the opportunity to do so.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And you're inspiring an improv-ish technique, because improv is an embodied practice. We're
Hmm.
doing a lot of nervous system regulation and rewiring the ways we approach things, because rather than just talking about it or thinking about it, we're doing it, right? We're in practice. And there's the embodiment of however we want to show up. So I'm totally imagining someone in a scene where they are prompted to play the character of themselves 10 years from now, and they actually get to say about themselves and what they've been doing, or they show up in that way, because then it actually physically puts them there, so it creates some safety in their body too, to be like, oh, okay, they can start to kind of merge and bring some of that 10-year from now self into their present self from a character standpoint. So I might have to bring this into some of the work we do, of just how do you, and maybe I'm going to plant a seed now to do a little collab, because I feel like we could design a really cool improv-ish session using some of these, like, really kind of wise techniques, but just like putting them into practice so people can really feel it.
I love this idea so much because something I see over and over again with my severance clients, especially if it was like an individual termination where they feel singled out, they come in feeling really beaten down and ashamed. And even their body language, like a little crumpled on themselves. And I just hear these phrases like, I'm just so confused how this happened. Like,
Mm.
I just don't know. There's like an uncertainty and a tentativeness. And like, I'm actually trying to figure out now how to help people physically step into confidence and to a place where they can start to acknowledge the situation and step into a little bit more bravery and self advocacy. And I kind of wonder if the embodiment exercise you're describing could be a really cool way to do that.
Yeah, and it takes, because sometimes it takes reinforcement from others as well. And certainly I've experienced this, I've seen this with folks I've worked with, where you can journal all day, you can write your affirmations and put them all over your wall, but in the face of others or interacting with others, if those beliefs are shaky, if you like, I'm enough and that's on your wall, but like you don't totally believe it all the time and it gets challenged amongst others, it's more likely to kind of shake back down. But if you have your ensemble, right, that's actually reinforcing that in some way, and you get to practice being in these moments. For instance, you're in a conversation with someone, a job interview, like a fake job interview that's improvised, and you're in that improvised environment, you get to be with an interviewer who isn't going to bring you down, or you get to practice playing the character that just believes in themselves no matter what. You get to like physically, you're sure it's make believe, but you're actually informing your own character and you're stretching your character range so that when you're in the wild and you get in those
Yeah.
situations, you have a place to pull from. And I think that that's such a power of when we get out of our heads and into our bodies with this stuff, because our minds can convince us of anything. It's an amazing gift and it's also terrifying for humanity. So we have to figure out ways to get our mind in a place where it's convincing us of the things that are most beneficial to ourselves and ideally other people around us.
And that you're making such an important point. And by the way, I think this is why people like me, I don't know if you put yourself in this category, who are very analytical in how we think. And, here I am, like, Enneagram 6, like super analytical. This is just how my brain works. Like, you're so right. We can talk ourselves in or out of almost anything. The work that I've done in therapy over the years has been to recognize that, like, the logic path is not actually what leads to transformation. It's tying into the somatic experience,
Yeah.
which is why mindfulness meditation has been a huge contributor to my ability to adjust my mindset over the year. It's not, not necessarily for everyone, but one of the things I often recommend to people when they are in job search is to start volunteering,
Mm.
because it's actually an embodied, like, actually get out there and do some sort of physical volunteering when you are helping. I stumbled upon this when I was laid off from my first job out of business school. I had been in the
Mm.
job 18 months. I was in Chicago and I got laid off at the beginning of Chicago winter, which, if you have lived in the Midwest, is
Oh.
terrible. It was like the year of the polar vortex.
Oh
But one of the things I did was I signed up to start tutoring kids after school
no.
through 829 Shy. It was in my neighborhood. Yeah, so cool. And I started volunteering at our local animal shelter, working with the cats. And it was important because not only did it get me out of the house, I actually, like, I was being helpful. I could teach these second graders math.
Mm.
I was showing up as competent and generous and useful. I wasn't asking for things. I wasn't asking for help. I was providing it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so it's just a great example of what you were saying of, like, how do you play that character? There's a way to do that there's a way to feel good as yourself, just being you while
Mm.
you're in job search. And, like, one of the very best ways to do that is to give back.
I love that. Be of service in a time where it can just be like, I mean, I think that's anytime you're experiencing anxiety, when you go and do something for someone else, it's such a great antidote. Also, I volunteered at 829 in San Francisco I taught comedy writing. I did comedy writing classes for the kids, and it was a blast. And it's a good reminder because I have, since moving, I used to volunteer at a therapeutic riding stable because I'm a former competitive equestrian. And I'm like, oh, there's another one near me. I was like, I got to reach out to them because it is, even when you're not experiencing this, it's great because it gets you out of your head and into doing something that's people appreciate. You're doing something that contributes, and if you're doing something you enjoy that you don't get to do every day, whether it's playing with cats or being around horses or kids, like all the better. It can bring some joy into your day. And it something you said earlier, right? The what's the story you're telling yourself is another powerful reminder here. Like, what story are you telling yourself, and do you need to tell yourself a different story? And if you do, find evidence to support that story, right? Like you said, find the moments of the great things you did at your previous job, or look at, I have a folder on my phone that's like nice things people have said to me, and it's like screenshots of testimonials or nice texts. And so if I'm having a tough day, I can go return to that to kind of remind myself of that story and not the story that so often the human mind wants to go towards the negative story. We all face it in various ways. Most people, I shouldn't say we all, there are plenty of narcissists out there with a diluted sense of reality. But the anxiety
You're,
piece of, oh, sorry, go ahead. Then I have a question about
well,
anxiety, but yeah.
okay, yeah, and I want to come back to that, but you're mentioning a really important technique, which
Mm.
is cognitive restructuring, where you take a belief and then you say, what evidence do I have to support this belief, and what evidence do I have against it? And sometimes just having yourself sit down and write that and go through the exercise. Like
Mm.
when my big girl job, like the biggest job I've ever had, it was clear to me that it wasn't working. I started telling myself, I was like, oh my God, like you're a failure. Like you you don't have it. You stepped into the arena and you did not meet the bar. You were found not worthy. And it was very easy to go there. And my coach at the time was like, okay, we're going to remind ourselves of everything that you did manage to do in that incredibly challenging environment. We're going to
Yeah.
remind ourselves of everything that you did achieve at your previous company that you were at for 7.5 years and were promoted. Like, so you just mentioned something, and it actually is an exercise that I love for people to do, and I found to be incredibly helpful myself.
So that's one. That's a great takeaway. Then something people can do in those times and the weeks and months that follow, where they might start to get those negative stories coming up, is like the cognitive restructuring. Like, what evidence is there for this and against this, and maybe focus on the stuff that helps you with the story that is most conducive to your inner peace, your goals, finding that new job if that's what you want to do. Obviously, this whole process like brings about, it can bring a lot of anxiety, right? And not just about the job, but of course, like financially, how am I going to support my life? There's like, if you move to a new place and now you're there, and it could bring up a lot of anxieties and worries about the future. So how can people handle, I mean, obviously there's the techniques people can just do generally for anxiety, but the specific things around when you are laid off, there's questions about health insurance, paying your bills, like rent, there's so many things that come up, like how you spend your time, which you've talked about. But other thoughts on like, how do you handle some of those worries and anxieties that come up that are directly related to your job? So when you lose the job, you're also losing security in these other things.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's get into the financial side of things because it really does matter. And yeah, to your point, Mary, it's probably the biggest contributor to the anxiety you feel.
Mm.
So the phrase I use is batten down the hatches. Step one, step one is just take stock of your cash reserve. How much do you have saved? That is, purely liquid cash. We're not talking about going into your 401k or something, but then, and take a look at your monthly living expenses and ask yourself, how much buffer do I actually have? Hopefully you have a severance package as well that helps bridge things a little bit. But get a sense for that picture. So when I got laid off from my this most recent job, I sat down with my husband and we were like, okay, like if I didn't earn anything, like if I earned $0 for 12 months, we would not have to make changes to our lifestyle. And knowing that helped relieve some of the pressure because at that point I knew it was probably going to take 6 to 12 months.
Mm.
And like we also would have now that's if you keep spending at your current rate. You
Yeah.
can also look at that number and say, I think we could reduce things by 20%, which gives me an additional, 2 to 3 months of runway. Let's make
Yeah.
those changes now.
I love this advice because there's power in knowing the numbers. They can be really scary to confront.
Yeah.
I certainly recall from my own experience, like I remember a friend invited me to like a fitness class or something. I'm like, no, I can't. I'm trying. I like money, and I was so
Mm.
stressed about money. And she's like, do you have a budget? And I'm like, no, I mean, no. And it's like funny because I went to business school and I had done budgets for businesses, but I hadn't really looked at it myself. And all I know that every time I paid my credit card bill, I was like, just like really stressed. But then I actually went through and looked at like what my monthly expenses were, what everything was. I, instead of avoiding again the beach ball, like, stop, 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 it's like confronting it and doing so in a way that was just kind of like, okay, I'm going to do this. Like that gives us the information of the scene we're in so that we can make informed choices. And sometimes that can calm us down. It might freak you out a little bit, but at least you have the information that you can make your next move. Because if you're not acknowledging the reality of your scene, then you can't actually act in your own best interests and with the most accurate information. So I love this kind of no. And maybe there are some things people could do to make that a little bit easier if they are stressed about it, whether it's an ensemble mate to kind of help them through it, or rewarding yourself with something you love after you do that hard thing. But then you have an accurate picture, you can make good choices. So I love this. That's such a great way to like find your next move.
So I'm curious for yourself, when you actually
Mm,
did sit down and confront the budget, how did you
I
feel?
did.
How did you
Oh,
feel afterwards? Yeah.
I felt relieved. I would say that was my biggest, like, oh, okay. Because it's kind of like when people get overwhelmed by a big project, like, oh my gosh. And
Mm.
if you go from making a good salary where you have a consistent income and, for just the sake, like, say it's $5,000 just a month, just to keep a little even number. Like, then all of a sudden it's like, oh my gosh, I got to make $5,000 each month to make this back. But instead you could look at like, oh, I'm actually spending $2,000 a month. And this happens in consulting too, right? If you're running your own business, you have to say, okay, I need to make this much. If you look at it and break it down, it may be only 4 customers. It may be not as overwhelming as we make it out to seem. So for me, I felt a sense of relief because I was like, okay, it's not as insurmountable. It made what felt impossible and felt scary just tangible. And I now had information to make decisions. And there definitely were times where I was still stressed to pay my credit card bill when I was only putting money out. There's somehow when you're not making as much money, you spend more. It feels like you're spending more. And that took a little bit to navigate, but it helped me understand how long I could go, how much time I had to bring in more money or find a job. It also made it so that I could say yes to like going to dinner with a friend or going to a fitness class, realizing that I could spend that $30. It wasn't going to like make or break my month. Yeah, so relief. I just felt so relieved after doing that.
And I think that experience is really common. I think you wrote about this. The
Mm.
amount of time that you spent being anxious about doing the thing or spending on doing the thing was like 10x the actual 30 minutes it took to do the thing.
That's true. Yeah, it always is.
Right? Right. And under like getting a clear picture of your financial situation at the beginning is actually one of the best things you can do. And that just allows you to make choices. You don't have to change your lifestyle right away. If you have some buffer, that in itself might actually be traumatic. Or, especially if you're a household of one, you can make those changes. But at least you're doing so informed.
Yes. Doing so informed, like acknowledging the reality of the situation so you can make best next steps. We're getting to the end of our time, and I feel like we could talk for another 6 hours. What haven't you said that you're like, just, I got to get this out there. I got to share this that we haven't covered. Yeah, that you'd want to leave our listeners with.
Okay, tactically, apply for unemployment insurance. I mean, it doesn't usually cover your expenses, but it's something, right? It's money that you are not earning. It's a little bit of a buffer. It can help with your runway. I used to think of it as my grocery money.
Good.
So that's the financial side of thing. But like, I think the most important thing is just to remember that like careers are long, and a job may play an important role in your career, but it's one of many. And the golden thread through your career is you.
It's like poetic. Sara, if people want to get in touch with you or work with you, where can they find you? What's the best way for people to connect with you?
It's pretty easy to find me on LinkedIn. So just
look
for
Sara.
To that. Yeah, Sara Perelli-Minetti. My consulting firm is called Hellos and Goodbyes. So you can look for that as well. And all my contact information is there.
Great. And we'll put the link to the website and your LinkedIn in the show notes. Sara, it's been such a joy. Thank you for sharing so much of your wisdom with us here today.
Great talking to you.